It's Christmas morning, 1996. Boulder, Colorado is quiet under a thin layer of snow, the kind of morning that feels safe, peaceful, ordinary. Inside a sprawling house on 15th Street, a 6-year-old girl named JonBenét Ramsey was supposed to be waking up to presents under the tree. Instead, her mother Patsy Ramsey found a 3-page ransom note at the bottom of the staircase, and the entire course of true crime history changed. No one could have guessed that a 2.5-page letter, written on paper from inside the house, would ignite decades of debate, accusations, and mystery. And to this day, no one has been charged with JonBenét's murder. The morning everything stopped. Around 5:52 a.m., Patsy Ramsey called 911. Her voice was shaking as she told dispatchers that her daughter was missing and a ransom note had been left behind. The note demanded $118,000, a weirdly specific number, almost the exact amount of her husband John's recent Christmas bonus. It was signed Victory SBTC, whatever that meant, and it warned the family not to contact the police. They did anyway. Within minutes, officers were inside the Ramsey home, searching for any sign of a break-in. The house was large, 5 bedrooms, multiple floors, a maze of hallways, and a basement that stretched under the entire property. There was no forced entry and no sounds of struggle. JonBenét's bed was empty, her covers neatly folded back. It looked as if she'd just been tucked in for the night. Hours passed. Friends and neighbors came over to comfort the family. Officers moved in and out of rooms. The house was crowded, a crime scene contaminated before it was even declared a crime scene. And then, around 1 p.m., something unimaginable happened. John Ramsey went downstairs with a family friend to search the basement again. Moments later, he cried out. He'd found JonBenét in a small room behind a wine cellar door. She was gone. From kidnapping to murder. Just like that, the case shifted from a kidnapping to a homicide. But the investigation didn't keep up. John picked his daughter up and brought her upstairs, a devastated father doing what any parent might do. But by doing so, he unknowingly destroyed valuable evidence. Police sealed off the basement too late, and Boulder's quiet morning turned into a storm of sirens and cameras. What followed was one of the most controversial investigations in American history. Within days, the police department was split in 2 camps, those who believed an intruder broke in that night, and those who believed the answer was inside the house. The evidence that didn't add up. Let's start with the ransom note. It was long, 2.5 pages, and weirdly specific. Most kidnappers don't write essays. They scribble a sentence or two and get out. This note looked like it was written with care, even humor. It quoted lines from movies like Dirty Harry. It used phrases like, "Don't try to grow a brain, John." And it was written on paper from the Ramseys' own notepad with a pen from their home. So who would take the time to sit down, write a 3-page note, and then carry out a murder in the same house? That's not normal criminal behavior. The autopsy revealed 2 things: a skull fracture and signs of strangulation. There was also a homemade garrote, a rope and paintbrush handle used as a twisting tool. Investigators found no sign of a sexual assault, but there were hints of an attempt. In the basement, there were boot prints that didn't belong to any family member, a broken window latch, and a suitcase under that window as if someone had climbed in or out. And yet no footprints in the snow outside. No forced entry upstairs. Nothing conclusive. Everything felt off, like a puzzle where every piece almost fits, but not quite. 2 theories and a nation divided. Very quickly, the story split in 2. One side, the police, believed the family was involved. The other side, private investigators and some prosecutors, insisted an intruder did it. Each side had evidence that felt airtight, until it didn't. The family theory was built on behavior and opportunity. Patsy found the note, called police despite warnings, and later lawyered up. Her handwriting showed similarities to the ransom note, but experts never agreed on a match. JonBenét's older brother Burke was only 9 at the time and was never a suspect, but the public theories went wild. People speculated about a cover-up after an accident. The idea was ugly, and no physical evidence ever supported it. But the media ran with it because it sold papers. Then there was the intruder theory, championed by Detective Lou Smith, a veteran homicide investigator who joined the case months later. He believed an outsider entered through that basement window, attacked JonBenét, and left the note to throw everyone off. He pointed to the unknown male DNA found on her clothing, DNA that didn't match any family member. That evidence would eventually clear the Ramseys in 2008. So which side is right? Well, that's why we're still talking about it today. The public trial of the Ramseys. While investigators argued behind closed doors, the public held its own trial on TV. Within weeks, tabloids were printing the Ramseys' faces next to headlines like "Killer Parents." It was a feeding frenzy, one that turned a family's grief into entertainment. Every press conference, every interview, every teardrop was analyzed for guilt. And because the case was so strange, a child beauty queen, a ransom note, a wealthy family in a safe neighborhood, people couldn't look away. In 1999, a grand jury was secretly convened. They voted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey for child endangerment and obstruction, but the district attorney refused to sign the charges, saying the evidence was too thin. That fact stayed sealed until 2013, when journalists uncovered it. By then, Patsy had died of cancer, still believing her family was being wrongly blamed. The DNA twist in 2008, new technology changed everything. Scientists tested traces of touch DNA from JonBenét's clothing. It belonged to an unknown male, and it did not match John, Patsy, or Burke Ramsey. Based on that, the district attorney formally cleared the family and even apologized. But the DNA has never been matched to anyone in a criminal database. It's a ghost, the most important clue that still doesn't talk. So what does that mean? Either an unknown man was in that house that night, or the DNA was a transfer from manufacturing or handling, a contaminant. Even now, experts can't agree. The science that freed the family might also be the reason we never find the killer. The confession that wasn't. Then came the 2006 plot twist no one saw coming. A school teacher named John Mark Carr was arrested in Thailand after confessing to JonBenét's murder. He knew details from news reports and claimed it was an accident. The world erupted. Finally, a suspect. Except his DNA didn't match. His timeline didn't fit. And pretty soon, investigators realized he was a man obsessed with the case, but not a part of it. It was another false lead in a story that was already too strange to believe. The legacy of a media storm. By the early 2000s, the Ramsey case was less a murder investigation and more a cultural mirror. It reflected our obsession with beauty pageants, wealth, and innocence lost. TV specials, books, and documentaries turned JonBenét's name into a brand, a symbol of unsolved America. Even now, mention her name and people instantly picture that pageant photo with the sparkling dress and the bright smile. It's haunting, because that image has lasted longer than the truth. In 2016, on the 20th anniversary, new documentaries hit TV and YouTube. Some pointed fingers, others re-examined evidence. Burke Ramsey, now an adult, gave his first interview and sued CBS for defamation after their series suggested he was involved. He won a settlement. So even decades later, the case wasn't just unsolved, it was still hurting the people left behind. What the evidence says now, here's what we actually know, the hard facts. JonBenét was killed inside her own home. No one heard an intruder. No one saw one. There was DNA from an unknown male on her clothing, but nothing else was taken. The ransom note appears to have been written after the murder, not before. And there's no proof of who actually wrote it. It's the ultimate locked room mystery, a case with too many clues and not enough answers. Police say they've followed over 21,000 tips and interviewed more than 1,000 people. They've tested new DNA methods every few years, hoping that one tiny strand will match a name in a database. So far, nothing. But the case is still open, still active, and still receiving attention from modern cold case teams in Colorado. Why it still haunts us. So why does this case stick in our collective brain when so many others fade away? Partly because it's unsolved. We hate not knowing. But also because it tangles so many contradictions, a wealthy family and a violent crime. A ransom note but no kidnapper. Evidence of planning but signs of panic. It's a story that feels both meticulous and messy, calculated and chaotic. And maybe that's why no theory ever fits perfectly. Every few years, a new documentary drops, and the internet lights up again with theories. Some are thoughtful, others not so much. But every discussion keeps her story alive. a 6-year-old girl whose name became shorthand for tragedy and mystery. The case today, in 2022, Boulder police teamed up with a new cold case review team to re-examine evidence. By 2023, they'd made new recommendations based on technology not available in the 90s. JonBenét's father, now in his late 70s, continues to push for more advanced DNA testing and transparency. He said he still believes someone out there knows what happened. And maybe they do. Because someone wrote that ransom note. Someone moved through that house. And someone has lived with that secret for almost 30 years. The final question. It's easy to see why this case captivates everyone. Because it feels solvable. There's evidence. There's motive. There's an entire paper trail of clues that seems so close to answering everything. But for every explanation, there's an equally strong contradiction. For every fingerprint, a question mark. For every theory, a counter-theory. And until science or confession bridges that gap, the story of JonBenét Ramsey remains frozen in time, a crime scene trapped between Christmas lights and cold silence. A little girl remembered by millions, and a case that refuses to close. Maybe one day the truth will finally step into the light. Until then, all we can do is keep asking the same question that's haunted Boulder for decades. Who killed JonBenét Ramsey?